What is up, you guys? Welcome or welcome back to Book Talk Audiobooks. I am so excited to be here. I know it has been a minute. I didn't post last week, and then I was hesitant to post this week, hesitant to even record. I'm actually gonna try to speed this episode up because I have somewhere to be in an hour, in like 2 hours. So I'm gonna try to speed this up. Most of my episodes are about like 30 minutes, and I still need to get ready. So that's my rush. But I hope everybody's having an amazing week, an amazing day, an amazing month, an amazing 2025. And I'm just gonna give you guys updates on my Powerless trilogy progress. I am on chapter 38, I think. So I'm almost at chapter 40, and I think there's only 46 chapters. Or no, I know there's 58. Oh my god. No, I'm pretty yeah, no, there's 58, I'm pretty sure actually. Never mind. But, I'm pretty close to being done. I have about 100 to 200 pages left. So, cuz it's like 470 something pages and I'm like at 330. So, I'm really close to being done. And then Reckless is like half the size of Powerless, so I'm hoping that I can get that done even faster and then go ahead and buy Fearless. But Fearless is so huge, but I have been seeing so many reactions to it, so many plot twists, and it just makes me very curious to read it. But if I buy it, then that means I am going to need to take a whole entire day to actually read it because there's no way I'm gonna put a bookmark in and then just kind of leave it be for a week. Like, there's no way I'm doing that. But anyways, let's go ahead and continue reading The Do-Over. Confession 12. I started drinking coffee when I was 11. My mom left for work when there was 1 cup of coffee in the pot every day, and since it seemed like a grown up thing to do, I did it. That snapped my attention back to the present. Why had I been worrying about insulting him when it was the DONC? I blinked and said, I don't really have a plan per se, but we should check out the first bank building. He raised an eyebrow. Do you have some investing to do? No, I want to sneak up to the 40th floor. Now I grabbed his elbow and we started walking. Listen to this. I started telling him what I knew and what I had discovered as we walked towards the skyscraper. The first bank building was the tallest building in the city, 45 stories to be exact. My auntie Ellen used to work there and told me that after it first opened, people made appointments to use the 40th floor balcony for marriage proposals. I also knew this to be true because it was where my young, foolish father had proposed to my equally immature and impulsive mother. But now, if you've Googled it, nothing. No mention of a balcony, no reference to balcony proposals. It was as if it never existed. I'd been obsessed with the missing balcony ever since Ellen told me about it when I was 10, and I was fixated on the notion that the setting for the beginning of so many people's happily ever afters was effectively erased. I found it sad, which had made my mother joke that perhaps it was the cosmos trying to right some wrongs. All those couples who twinkled up there for the big moment could never revisit the spot. Ever. I think that says precious, but I don't think that says precious. So we're gonna look that up. It was in fact not precious, it was precocious. Precocious 10-year-old me had even called the building manager, but instead of explaining the closure, he told me I was mistaken. He denied there had ever been such a thing. I knew better. So I'd always sneak up and check it out, except Nick did think it was a bad idea. But he listened closely. He nodded and looked up at the towering building as we approached, and instead of saying no, he said, I'm sure we need badges to get past the lobby. My eye shot to his that he was matter of factly considering going along with this. Probably. So what's your plan? Hmm, I bit my lip as we stopped by the fountains that sat in front of the building. Think, think. We could pull the fire alarm. Nothing will get us arrested, you criminal, he said and laughed, his eyes sweeping over me and making it impossible not to smile. Maybe we can bribe a security guard. Do you have any money? He just looked at me. Well, I don't hear you. There has to be a side door. He tossed his cup into the green trash and said, one of those exit only doors that nearly every building has. And, and if we find it and lurk, as soon as someone comes out, we go in. I blinked. That's genius. No, it's common sense. Fine. No compliment for you then. I recede the compliment. You can't receive a compliment. Yes, you can. Nope. My ego knows you think I'm a genius now, regardless of how hard you might deny it. That made me laugh. I do not think you're a genius. I said the idea was a genius. Potato, potato. I just rolled my eyes and took a sip of the coffee. Then, wait, how did you finish your tea already? I didn't. It sucked, and I was sick of carrying it. But you just bought it. Are we going to talk about my tea or are we going to find that door? I tossed my coffee into the trash can. Let's go find that door. We walked parallel to the building, intentionally behaving like two teenagers casually walking around downtown, just in case of cameras. He told me a ridiculous story as we cased the joint about the time he was working at a driving range and he got stuck inside the ball picker. I don't even know what a golf ball picker is, I said, staring at the building's stone facade? Facade? I don't even know. A machine that picks up golf balls. I rolled my eyes. Well, of course, but I can't picture it. He said, You don't have to picture it. Just know I got stuck inside for an hour and almost died of heat exhaustion. Couldn't you have broken the window or something? Nick shook his head and said, We're all scared of death of our boss, Matt. He was a total something. We never would have considered that. You would have rather died in a ball picker? Instead of answering me, he said, Look, pointed to a door that was at the back of the building, painted to match the brick and barely noticeable. Do you think people use it? No idea, he said. The door opened. I gasped and nearly got trampled by three women who came out. The lady in the middle apologized while Nick stepped forward and held the door for them like he was a total gentleman, not at all the grumpy, quiet lab partner I had all year. But the minute they turned away from us, he gave me an eyebrow raise. After you? Let's go. We stepped inside and the door slammed behind us. We were all in a stairwell. I started for the door to whatever lay beyond when he said, Wait. I stopped. Why? We don't know what it looks like on the other side of that door. Maybe we know we have to go up to 40, so he gave the steps a chin nod. So you want to climb 40 flights of stairs? He, I, I did not want to flex my out of shape. I did not want to flex my out of shape attitude in front of him. Nope. Not all of us run every morning. We can go 2 flights at a time and rest in between. I don't need your fitness pity. He raised an eyebrow again. So you want to? I let out a big sigh, and then I groaned before saying, Let's do this. The first flights of the two flights. Oh my god. The first two flights were pretty easy, but by the third, my quads were starting to cramp, and I felt sweat starting to form on my forehead. You okay? Nick asked when we stopped for our first break. Are you? I tried to keep myself from panting, but sounded pretty out of breath when I said, This is cake. I noticed that he showed no sign of exertion other than a slight flush of his cheeks. Is it? He gave me a suspicious look and said, I'm sorry, have I been holding you up? Do you want to run the next flight? Of course not. No, thank you. What are you, insane? Those would all be appropriate responses, but my mouth couldn't seem to form the words, which was weird because I didn't consider myself to be particularly competitive, especially when it came to athletic endeavors. But the fact that I could tell he knew I wouldn't do it, it made me say the unspeakable. How about the next two? His mouth curled into a full-on grin, and he took off. I started slow jogging the stairs behind him, wanting to dye my leather pants, and he immediately showed and kept pace with me. I looked to my left, and there he was, grinning like he could run stairs all day. I smiled back while my heart pounded and screamed obscenities, and tried to remember what its job was. We ran one flight and then another, but we both kept running after that. My legs started burning, and I was running the steps at a slower pace than if I were if I were walking them. To be honest, my face must have looked pain because when we reached the next landing, Nick took pity on me. Wait, he stopped and made me happy to see that he was panting too. He held up a finger while he caught his breath, which was fine by me because my ears felt too furry to hear out of. So, he breathed, every floor in this building has an elevator. Yeah. I stacked my hands on top of my head as my lungs screamed. So, let's get out of the stairwell. Think about it. Odds are good that we can get into an elevator on a random floor of offices before anyone who cares notices us. Are you sure? I didn't want to climb another step, but I didn't want to get busted now that we were getting close either. Positive. Do you trust me? I nodded, still trying to unlabor my breath, which made him smile. He said, let's stay here for a couple minutes so we don't have to burst out of the stairwell panting and sweating. People might talk. An image of Nick and me against the wall of the stairwell flashed in my head. Whoa. I was happy when he distracted me and said, I think it's my turn to ask you a question anyway. No, it's mine. I leaned to the backside against the wall and said, let's go big. Have you ever been in love? He gave me a look, like he thought it was an absurd question. That's a hard no. Not even close? I don't know why, but I was shocked by that. I've loved, of course, but I've never been in love. Not even close. He looked down and started fidgeting with the zipper of his jacket. You? Hmm. I checked my hair behind my ears and said, when I woke up on Valentine's Day, I thought I was in love, but here I am a few hours later, wondering if I ever loved Josh at all. He raised his eyes. Maybe that's just because you're mad at him. That what's so weird? I paused to think for a moment and said, yes, I'm pissed that he kissed his ex-girlfriend, but only a little. Definitely not as much as I should be. It made me feel, I don't know, regretful. Had my feelings been something less than genuine? He continued messing with his zipper. So why? This is a new realization, so I'm working it all out. Got it. He abandoned his zipper, straightened, and walked over to the door and opened it a crack. His eyes was pressed against the opening for a solid 20 seconds before he closed it again. All right, the coast is clear. He looked at me over his shoulder. Are you ready for this? What's our story if we... I got it. No worries. He looked at me with crinkly eyes and said, you still trust me, right? It was weird how much I did. Right. Then let's go. Just pretend we're supposed to be here. Got it. Nick pulled open the door and we walked out. In front of us was a carpeted hallway with offices on each side of it. Offices with glass walls. We started down the corridor as he winked at me, which made me giggle. We buried past office after office, and a woman in a suit gave us a closed-mouthed smile as she came out of her office and walked past us. After she went by, we grinned at each other because holy crap, it was actually working. We were going to make it to the elevators. Excuse me. Dang it. We kept walking, our eyes looking straight ahead as we heard the deep voice of an older man repeat the words behind us. Excuse me, you too. Nick turned around and his face transformed itself into of a sweet, innocent high school boy. I watched in awe, my heart racing, as he said, yes? Can I help you with something? Actually, that would be great. Could you point us in the direction of the elevator? We're here for an internship orientation, and we clearly got off on the wrong floor. Wow, good one, Nick. I turned around and the man was looking at both of us through narrowed eyes. I thought Nick was super believable, but the well-dressed old guy still looked suspicious. I gave him my best good student smile. It's just over there, he said, pointing past us, but I didn't even see you two get off the elevator the first time. That's because we took the stairs, I said, smiling even harder. I like to move, but my friend here is a little out of shape. I thought he was going to puke all the way up, which is why we ditched the stairs and looked and which is why we ditched the stairs to look for an elevator. Finally, finally, the guy smiled. Not everyone can handle those stairs. I reached out and poked Nick's my midsection, which was incredible. Okay, no, I'm not saying that. With my finger and said, tells me, tell me about it. I thought I was gonna have to carry this marshmallow. Thank you so much for your help, sir. Nick captured my finger on his hand while the guy laughed. Nick said to me, come on, we've got to run if we're gonna get there on time. Guys, I cannot speak today. Come on, we've got to run if we're going to get here on time. We managed to calmly walk to the elevators, but the doors closed behind us. I was cackling. I looked at his wide grin and said, Nick Stark, you are such a good liar. He laughed and moved a little closer. And you are such an enormous brat with your marshmallow stuff. I felt breathless. He was right there. His face was just above mine, while his body kind of trapped mine between the elevator wall and him. And I realized that I wanted him to kiss me. Something about the stairwell symphony about my feelings for Josh made me feel wildly free to explore Nick Stark. We should go to the 39th floor, he said, his voice deep and quiet as his eyes stayed on mine, and then take the stairs from there. I just nodded as the elevator whooshed us upward. I swore he was leaning closer when the elevator dinged. We both jumped apart and looked at the numbers. We were apparently on 12, and more people were getting on. I pushed up my hair as the doors opened and the security guard joined us. What were the odds? And what had almost happened between me and Nick Stark? I gave the guard a polite smile as he returned it, stepping inside and pressing the button on the floor 36 as the doors closed behind him. I gave Nick a sideways glance as he was looking straight ahead, totally unaffected by this interloper's presence. The car started moving, and I watched the illuminated display above the doors dutifully report each and every floor as we passed. I cleared my throat and a bit down on my lips as the silence very nearly killed me. When we finally hit the 36th floor, the elevator dinged. The tall security guard gave me another polite smile. As the doors opened, I said, "Have a good day." He gave me a head nod. "You too." Once the doors closed behind him, I glanced at Nick. He was looking at me with an unreadable expression on his face, and I was begging my brain not to overthink whatever was happening between us. The elevator dinged when we reached the 39th floor, of course, and he just said, "Ready to do this again?" I smiled and muttered something in answer, but the truth was that I wasn't capable of an actual conversation. I needed a minute to calm my freaking the freak out nerves. The door opened, and this floor had a foyer area with a reception desk. It was deathly quiet, and the stern looking woman sitting behind the desk already looked irritated by our existence. "Can I help you?" Nick said, "Can you point us to the direction for the stairwell? The guy in the orientation said we could take them down if we wanted to exercise, but then we got on the elevator and almost forgot. Is it over there?" He pointed toward the other end of the building, and I was in awe of his composure. She nodded. "I'll show you." My breath got caught in my throat as she stood and came around the desk. Nick smiled at her, and they started walking, so I followed. "What orientation were you here for?" she asked. "An internship orientation with HR. It's for their new summer program." "Oh." She looked at him with her eyebrows down. "I didn't know they had something like that." Trust me, we were in surprise to everyone today. The woman laughed and Nick added, "I'm excited to work in this building, though. Have you worked here long?" She nodded. 15 years. Wow, that is a long time. Only to you, because you're young. She smiled and glanced back at me. Trust me, 15 years flies by. So, were you here when people used to do proposals upstairs? He said it so casually, like it was a common knowledge to everyone in the world. Or had that already stopped by the time you started? Oh, they still did it. But it was usually on evenings and weekends, so I didn't really affect those of us who worked there. "Do you know why it stopped?" Nick asked, sounding super chill that I was extra impressed by him. "Why the balcony kind of went offline?" "No idea. I heard I really uptight X X X X I don't even know moved into the big office and shut it down. But that was just a rumor." She stopped walking, then gestured toward the door at the end of the hall. "There's the stairwell, but I warn you, even though you're going down, there's still a lot of steps. Be careful." "We will. We will." I cleared my throat and said, "Thank you so much." "Of course." Nick opened the stairwell door and I walked through. He followed. For a second, when the door slammed behind us, I wondered if he was going to kiss me, but then he said, "We're almost here. Let's do this, Hornby." We walked up the final flight of stairs, and I had no idea what to say. My hands were still a little trembly, and my head was full of a million questions. When we got to the top, without a word, Nick opened the door. We stepped out, and it was almost another very quiet floor. It seemed to be comprised of ultra swanky offices, probably the executives, and apparently no one up there made noise, like, at all. "I wonder where the balcony is," I whispered. "If I had to guess," he whispered back, "I'd say the east side. Wouldn't they want the balcony to look out over the heart of downtown?" "Oh, good point." We walked down the hallway, both of us scanning the area in all directions in an attempt to see something that intimated a balcony that in guys, I cannot speak. That intimate no intimidated, there we go, intimidated a balcony was awaiting us. We walked all over the entire floor but couldn't find anything, and then Nick saw it. "Look," he said, and I looked in the direction that he nodded his head. No way. One of the opposite offices had its blind open and the balcony was on the other side. We have to go through the office to get on the balcony because the bank of offices had the door that which directly led out. Let's keep walking. Maybe there's a common area. We started walking further down the hall, but when we reached it at the end, it was clear. The offices in a row were only points of access. Well, I guess that's it, I said, irrationally sad to give up on the dream. We should probably go before we get arrested. The bathroom floor to our left opened and another security guard walked out. Of course. As he bent at the drinking fountain, I made bug eyes at Nick. But instead of responding to me, Nick looked over my head. I was about to tell him that we should just forget about it when he said, "Excuse me, sir." I turned around to see who it was Nick. Oh my god. I turned around to see who he was talking to as Nick walked past me and approached one of the fancy office doorways. The guy behind the desk looked busy and important, like a cranky X. I don't even know. It's spelled EXEC. I have never heard of the word before, so I'm just gonna say whatever I think it says because I really don't know. Okay, anyways, the guy behind the desk looked busy and important, like a really cranky ex, with his perfect tie and expensive watch as he raised his eyes to Nick. Can I talk to you for a second? He glanced back at me and winked, then said to the guy, "I can see you're busy. I swear it'll only take a minute." I had no idea what was happening as he walked into the guy's office and closed the door behind him. I giggled awkwardly as the security guard straightened and gave me a chin nod, and I had no idea what I would say if he asked me where I was supposed to be or what I was doing. Jerome, the guy in the office with Nick, opened the door and yelled to the security guard, "Hey, can you come in here for a sec?" We were so busted. No problem. The guard went into the office and closed the door behind him. I looked around in the empty hallway and started out a little laugh, because life had gotten downright bizarre. I could see Nick in the fancy office talking to the two guys. A minute later, the security guard and the executive started laughing. What in the actual... The door opened, and Nick, looking like an incorrigible child, as he beamed at me and said, "Come on, Em." I blinked and walked over to the office, clueless as to what exactly was happening. When I reached his side, Nick grabbed my hand and said, "But now I owe Bill and Jerome a favor." "Who?" "Hi, I'm Bill," the executive said, smiling at me like we were invited for tea. "Jerome, nice to meet you," said the guard, grinning like I was adorable. "Nice to meet you both," I muttered as the Nick pulled me forward. He pulled me past Bill's desk, turned the knob, and opened the door, and that led outside. "I'm having Jerome lock the door in 10 minutes," Bill said as the cold air rushed in. "We'll be done in 5," Nick said, linking his fingers tightly between mine and pulling me out to the balcony. The second door closed behind us, and I gasped at him. "Oh my god! How did you do this?" I gasped, dragging him closer towards the edge. "What did you tell him?" He smirked. "Which one should I answer first?" "Both of them." "Wow." We both walked a little further out the balcony, and the city below was breathtaking. It was quiet up there, even though I could hear the distant sounds of the streets, and I totally understood the whole good place for a proposal thing. I simply explained that we'd been on a mission to find the exclusive balcony. His face looked a little weird when he said, "I guess they're just nice guys." I looked out at the view and breathed. This is incredible. I tried picturing my parents up here, young and still in love. Had my dad been nervous, worried my mom might say no, as she cried tears of joy before shouting 1,000 times yes? Had she gritted her teeth, irritated that he'd employed such a big, over-dramatic gesture? It was silly, but I felt a little emotional standing where it happened. Yeah, Nick ran a hand over the top of his hair and said, "I hadn't pictured it being this cool." 40 stories is actually way higher than I envisioned, I added, not courageous enough to walk to the edge, even though the railing would be nearly impossible to get over. "Thank you for making this happen." "It's the DONC, Hornby. No consequences." Movement behind him caught my eye, and then I gasped because there were a bunch of people, like a small crowd gathering on the balcony just outside Bill's office. It looked like everyone in their existence, and oh, jeez, the security guard had stepped out of the conduit and stared at us. "Nick, what did you tell Bill?" When I looked at his face, his eyes were on my lips, and I almost forgot what was happening, but I asked, "To get him to let us out here?" He shrugged and casually said, "Don't worry about, because we have a crowd watching us." "What?" Nick glanced behind him. Oh crap. Oh crap, what? Is there something? I told him I wanted to come out here for a promposal. A promposal? I couldn't believe Nick had said that. Of course they were out here, adults that love that stuff. Nick, he looked as unfazed as I did. Well, just tell them I asked you and you said yes. I waited for the rest, but apparently that was it. That's not a proposal. He looked surprised. It's not? No, I rolled my eyes and explained that it's asking someone to prom. A promposal is when someone does something huge in order to convince someone to say yes. Getting a celebrity help, making a cake, singing a song, asking in 3 million rose petals, doing a dance. How did you not know this? To be fair, that was just what I knew. Perhaps they did it differently elsewhere. But in my town, at our school, that's what it meant. Next level stuff, like next level stuff, the likes of an engagement proposal. Why would anyone do that for prom? He asked, looking disgusted. It's just a dance. Do you really want to discuss the merits of a proposal with me at this moment? The crowd and the security guard is waiting for our show. He didn't say a word, but got on his phone and started scrolling. I glanced behind him at the spectators who were still staring expectantly. Nick, hang on. He scrolled for another minute, then looked at me and grinned. Nick! His phone started playing music, loudly, but before I could ask him what he was doing, was that Cupid's shuffle? He handed me the phone. I took it, and then backed up like 5 steps and started doing the worst version of the Cupid shuffle I had ever seen. He wore a cheesy smile while doing a rigid, absolutely pathetic rendition of the line dance. Sweet, I yelled. I started laughing, no calculating, when he yelled over the music. Emily Hornby, will you Cupid shuffle with me to the prom? I goes back through the uncontrollable giggles. Are you saying you're my Cupid shuffling to win my prom favor? Yes, he nodded while going to the left, to the left, to the left. That is exactly what I'm saying. And then he did a spontaneous spin move. How do you know the Cupid Shuffle? I asked, knowing without actually knowing that Nick Stark had ever done a line dance in his entire life. I've been to a wedding before, and also the song tells you what to do. Now, please say yes. I couldn't see through the tears, and my stomach hurt from laughing so hard. First, tell me that you love me. He shook his head. I love your hair and your sensible shoes, you annoying pain. Please say you'll go to prom with me. Yes, I screamed dramatically, jumping up and down, making the people behind us burst into applause. Yes, I will prom with you. They gave me a look and yelled, Come join me, Emmy. Nah, I'm good. Get out there, Jerome shouted, giving me a dad look. Put that boy out of his misery. I don't know why that was so country right there, but okay. Aren't there drugs for that? Nick grabbed my hand, and I continued cackling for the rest of the song as we line danced like we were at a wedding with a small team of corporate executives joining in behind us. This was a great idea, Hornby, Nick teased as we went to the right, to the right. I laughed, still dancing as I looked at the beautiful skyline and the boy next to me. I know. That is it, you guys. I know this was like a little bit of a shorter episode because usually my episodes are about 30 minutes and we are right under 30 minutes, but that was a pretty short chapter. We are on page 137 out of 229. So we are getting there, guys. We are getting there. I am actually going to look up how many confessions slash chapters there are in this book. But yeah, I am really thrilled to see where Emily and Nick are going, and I realized that I had been saying Emily's last name wrong, so I said Hornby, but it's actually Hornby. So I'm trying to fix that. That was really embarrassing, to be honest. So yeah, and there's a lot of words in here that I have never seen before or heard of in my entire life. So yes, I do take sometimes to look them up, learn the pronunciation, and then say it. I think in one of my episodes actually, I was struggling over a word and then I literally just played the pronunciation that I found on Google. Like not even my own voice, but like the automated AI voice of saying the word because I had no idea how to say it and I wasn't just gonna sit there and learn how to say it because it was just I was not like I just wanted to read the rest of the story. I didn't want to like stop and pause. But yeah, and then I don't know why Jerome's voice, I just kind of went country at the end. I don't know. But yeah. Also, oh my gosh. Sorry, I just read Confession 13. Anyways, but this was a shorter chapter than usual, I believe. Shorter chapter than usual. So that's why this is a little bit of a shorter episode. But like I said in the beginning of this episode, I do have a place to be. And so this was actually perfect timing because I have an hour to get ready, which is perfect. So, anyways, I hope everybody has an amazing week, an amazing day, an amazing month, and I will see you guys next time. Bye!